Okay, thanks everyone. I'm now going to present on a preview of MEDIAL version 6, it's our last session of the day. So this is going to be kind of a few slides and a little bit of a demo in terms of showing you through some stuff in the user interface as well. This is far from the complete product, I hasten to add, so a lot of what you're going to see here in terms of the user interface probably won't be as pretty as what it will look like when it will go out, but it should give you a really good idea of what we're doing. And a lot of this stuff is kind of complete in terms of the code, but also, suggestions as well. I'll open it up to the floor, especially about the analytics as well. We've had a lot of questions about that throughout the day, and opinions and things like that. But a lot of what we've discussed today, with the various slides that came after the kind of the user presentations, a lot of that stuff is actually going into V6, which is good because it means that we're about right with our roadmap. And I spent a lot of time this year going out and seeing customers to kind of find out what people wanted. So yeah, that's kind of good that we're aligned in that way. But there were some interesting suggestions as well that Georgina, who's here today, will have noted down, and we'll feed those through. Cameron's in particular about the encoding profiles per group is not one that I'd ever thought of. So that's a really good suggestion, and probably not that difficult to do, actually, to be fair. So version 6, as we know, we sort of lump everything into these three areas now: library, live, and learning. So I'll take you through all of the different changes that we've made to the particular things. From the library point of view, so the first thing to say, it's going to be quite a simple change really, is that we're going to put JW Player 8 into version 6 of MEDIAL. Has anybody had a look at JW Player 8 yet, the preview of it? Had a look? A few people are putting their hands up. Basically what they're saying, I was on the beta of it, tried it out, had a go with it, really just to the extent of seeing whether VOD and live content would work, and then kind of just went, great, it works. They're saying it's going to be a lot faster is basically the main selling point of the player. The reason is because the bits that are in the player are much smaller, they should load a lot quicker, and they're also saying if you put multiple players on a page, they should load quicker as well. The customization of it, not something that I've dug into in a great deal of detail as yet, but supposedly meant to be a bit simpler as well. But effectively the takeaway from the new player is that it should just be a lot faster. This slide's really just to illustrate trim. So in Media Lecture, we have the ability to trim and chop a video. In the MEDIAL interface itself, we don't currently have the ability to edit the video in that way. So we'll be introducing trim to the video in this kind of sort of Apple-esque way through the player, where you basically just get to select the section of the video that you want to trim it down to. So that's coming in. That's particularly useful with things like TV recordings, where you don't want the ads at the start and the end, and also with lectures as well. The first thing that we'll do once we finish this live stream is we'll edit down, and take out all of the stuff at the start and the end. That's generally what people want to do. So that's coming in. This is it's kind of another product, but it's part of the media library. So it's called Media Loader. And what it does is it enables you to put a lot of content into the library in one go. So most people know about the fact that you can bulk ingest content into MEDIAL. So there's a folder on your server that's called bulk, or whatever you want to call it. And you effectively, what you do is you put videos and XML files in there. The video files need to be called the same as the XML file, and the XML file in it has data like the title, the description, etc. So by doing that, you can circumvent the need to go through the upload wizard, which is very, very useful. But what we found is as we went through this process, particularly when people started out with MEDIAL, they might say, well, I've got 500 videos and I want to get them in there, but I have no idea how to create XML files or make the XML file the same as the MP4 file, and there's all these funny scripts and renaming scripts and things that you can use to do that, but there's not really any decent way of doing that. And most people, the way they wanted to do it was just through spreadsheets, just by having a spreadsheet of information and some videos in a path, so that you could just click to generate a spreadsheet from a video path. And it would effectively create, you'd put a load of videos in to a folder. It would then create a kind of metadata Excel file, and you would add your data to that Excel file, and then this would be the title and description related to the name of the media file, and you'd put in the subject. In this case, that's the category of medial, any tags, etc., that you want to put in there. Once you'd done that and you'd edited your spreadsheet to make the metadata match the name of the video files, you basically just click on the button to create XML files, and then it outputs what is needed for Medial to ingest it, which is basically an MP4 file with a nice little XML file that has all the metadata in it. So you're able to do that by effectively defining, first of all, a video scan path, which is effectively just a folder with a load of videos in it, creating a spreadsheet, which is pretty much like a blank spreadsheet, doesn't really have a lot in it apart from just the names of the videos, putting in all the metadata that you want into that Excel file, and then just clicking to generate the output, which is effectively what you need to bulk upload into Medial. So this, I'm being slightly disingenuous in including this in V6 because actually this is available today if you wanted it. But the extension of this is to make this connect to your bulk upload folder. So at the moment, what you'd have to do is use these files and dump these files via FTP or something into the bulk folder, and then Medial would ingest all of these files. Or if you had access via a file share, or maybe you just, I don't know, put them all in a zip folder and download them onto the server, you could do that. But what we want to do with Media Loader in V6 is make it so that you can connect to Medial and upload those folders. I think the initial spec of this was by a kind of sort of shared secret between the two systems, so that you could type in a kind of a code, get access to be able to do that for a certain period of time, and then it would put it into your bulk folder. So you could kind of, I don't know, you might have somebody in a department that you might want to not give that permission to forever. You might want to say, look, you've only got it for like 10 days or something. And then after that, their little code that they put into Media Loader wouldn't then work, but at least it would for the time that they needed it for. So it's kind of a neat thing. It already exists, but we're going to add to it. And a lot of people already use this bulk function. More people than what I thought use it, actually. A lot of the visits I've done recently, people say they use this feature a lot. So this is kind of an easier way of doing it. So if you want the product as it is, contact support, and you can get this already. If you want it with the extra kind of connect to Medial option, that's going to come in V6. Sort of on the same subject as this, so I was talking to somebody earlier about ingesting content from third-party systems, and Ryan talked about a few systems earlier. He was talking about the Matrox system in particular, and also TechSmith as well as a similar sort of thing. But basically what's come about in recent times is this IMS group, which are the same people that are behind LTI, which is the technology that we use for Moodle and Blackboard. So LTI is just, as you know, is a standard to kind of glue third-party applications to LMS systems. That same group that did that have created this thing called the Open Video Capture Standard, which is basically just a way of defining what this output should be in order for a third-party system to ingest it. So it's just a standard XML format and a standard way of kind of naming the file so that any system could ingest it. So this is something that we want to put into V6 and kind of follow this standard, so that, say if a customer came to me and said, I've got this thing that I may or may not have even heard of, and I want this thing to output somewhere and Medial to ingest it. My answer has always been in the past, well, okay, we'll speak to them, they see whether they want to play ball with us, how many customers have they got, is it worth us doing it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What this should come down to, realistically, at the end of the day is, do they support this open video capture standard? Yes or no? Because there's a business reason for them to do that at the end of the day, because this should be, I'm hoping, this becomes a standard in the same way that LTI does. So that with LTI, for example, people come to us all the time with LMS systems that I haven't heard of. I mean, there's not that many of them around, but they still come with these systems. I think, wow, I don't know that one, or I'm not familiar with it. But most of them support LTI because they know if they support LTI, most third-party applications are going to work with it. Whereas with capture from these systems, it appears like some vendors have done this and some vendors haven't. So for example, the one that Ryan mentioned, Matrox have definitely done it, and TechSmith as well, which has been mentioned a lot today as well. They, I believe, have adopted this as well. So this is something that we're interested in adopting in our software, so we can support kind of multiple ways of ingesting content from different apps. So just out of interest, from the audience, I don't know whether, is Andrew floating around with a mic or not? No. Oh, you've got it, Lee. Okay, just from the audience, are there any other applications that people would want MEDIAL to ingest from? I know, Ollie, you're going to say Extron, which we're already considering or have kind of done. Anybody else? Any other? Echo 360? Any other? I mean, you don't have to hand the mic round, Lee, because I can kind of repeat what people say. No? No others? Like these video conferencing systems, sometimes people talk to me about that. So I'm outputting all this content from video conferencing. I'd quite like to ingest it, but I think Echo would... Go on, Lee. Yeah.
So Skype for Business then?
Skype, yeah, Skype for Business. I looked at that a while back when it was, what was it called before? Link. Was it called Link before? Yeah, I looked at that.
And it's going to be called Teams. Well, we're using Teams now, but
yeah. So for video, all it appeared to do was output an MP4 file to your local disk. It didn't appear to do anything other than that. So that, at that point, just becomes, well, upload it to MEDIAL. There didn't seem any more intelligence to it than that. So if you can tell me otherwise, and it does put it somewhere that we could grab, then we would certainly be up for doing it. But as I saw, it just output it locally.
Our video conferencing is Cisco, and I don't know whether it still exists, but we did have a box which you could then record to.
Yeah.
So, and then you got the file from there, and then we put the file from there into streaming into Wowser.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
we've done it with those systems, but the older Cisco, like Tandberg systems, things like that, they generally, the metadata is really poor on those generally. And a lot of those systems have gone end of life now. They're not even supported anymore.
That's
so it's very difficult for us to create a business case for doing it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's worth mentioning NewTek NDI as well. The questions I've heard about the NDI protocol.
Yeah, do you know what? It's something I'm not that up to date with, so I'm gonna have to feign. I'm gonna have to say that I'm ignorant on that subject. But I've seen a lot of noise about it thus far. But so we're not talking about a protocol. It's a product that has a kind of.
Just really quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So NewTek NDI is their own protocol.
Yeah.
They have it built into their IP series products like TriCasters and things like that. But the reason it's important is because it's built into some freeware tools, some screen capture tools that can capture NDI and send it as its IP, and it's lossless, quote unquote lossless. Yeah. Wowser doesn't have any current support for it, but we're talking to them about it. We do quote unquote support it inside the Media DS product, which is this joint product we have with NewTek. But inside of Wowser, we don't currently have it. But it is potentially in our roadmap for 2018, so those who are interested, maybe something coming, and then hence would be potentially available within MEDIAL as well.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm going to have to look into that one. So also in the library, accessibility. So I think I mentioned Texas School for the Blind and Visually Impaired earlier on, and how we've had a number of meetings with them to just talk to them about their requirements and how that would be transferable to other people. The things here are, it's basically, changing colors, contrast, all that sort of stuff. But there's also the kind of interesting area around these thing called ARIA labels that I didn't really understand until we started talking to them. It's effectively telling screen readers, what certain things are. Our link in the HTML might not have something that's a kind of a tag or a label that tells people it is a link to download in the screen reader. And we just need to be more mindful of what a screen reader is seeing when it's going through our page. So we've got a lot of hints and tips on that, even to the point of, how things could be improved on the media player as well. Because a lot of this stuff in the code, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to a screen reader. I mean, there's things like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of one off the top of my head, but there'll be an icon, let's say, that you should click on to play a video or do something. And actually, the way the screen reader is reading it is just reading the credit for that icon, just saying this icon was made by, Pascal somebody or something like that. So it's just delving into the way a screen reader reads our page a bit better. And we've had a lot of hints and tips from them to be able to do that. And we'll be incorporating that as part of version 6. So that's kind of part of the accessibility angle of version 6. The other bit of it is around closed captions, or subtitles as they're known here in the UK. So already we obviously have closed captions in the player. People have seen these. I've had a conversation with somebody earlier talking about that they put an SRT file into the player and it looked fine. VTT files are probably the best files to use for closed captions because the browser support is better across the board. And in terms of iOS, the latest that I heard was that VTT was only supported in iOS, as in SRT wasn't, although I've heard to the contrary relatively recently. The thing to say on that as an interesting point is there's very little difference between an SRT and a VTT file. One just used commas and one used dots. I mean, it's nothing. Like you could do a find and replace in Notepad in like 2 minutes and change one to the other. There isn't really a distinct difference between the two. But you're much safer to use VTT because that will work with iOS. And it works really nicely in terms of how it looks within the video. It actually looks like it's baked into the video. So maybe try this with your Medial, upload a VTT file. We can give you a sample one if you haven't got one. And if you view it back on your iPhone, it looks really, really aesthetically pleasing when you see it in the player now. So Captions is already in the player. But as has been alluded to in the last presentation by Brighton, where we're talking about, these various acts, Equality Act or DDA or ADA, whatever way you want to call it, or whatever kind of legal compliance that there is to do it, or guidelines to do it, it's quite a difficult area because there's a lot of misinformation out there about it. But effectively, from my visits that I've made, certainly in the UK, what's being said is that this needs to be done. And it's sort of no more Mr. Nice Guy needs to be done. We have to do this. But as Cameron alluded to earlier, and I've heard this from a lot of customers, it's like, how are we going to do this in terms of budget? We haven't got the money to do it. We haven't got the resource to do it. But we do obviously want to do it because it's not a bad thing to do. From the point of view of ADA, which is the very strict kind of American legal compliance angle, the 4 kind of key points there are this kind of what I've got here: accuracy, synchronicity, completeness, and proper placement. So accuracy's, self-evident what that is. The synchronicity, obviously timing it right so that it isn't out of time. Completeness, just making sure that any spoken word is there. And proper placement, not putting it in a way that it obscures something else that is interesting or important within the video. There's some good information out there on the web about this. Probably the best place to look is a lot of the captioning vendors. They have a lot of stuff on their blogs that's quite interesting. Maybe when I put this up, I'll maybe put some links in the kind of associated files section so that you guys can read up a bit on it. But I mean, the Equality Act of 2010, the UK one, is not a particularly interesting read. And actually, is it that lined up with closed captioning? Not really. It's more to do with equal opportunity, which does dovetail into providing captions because you have to give everyone an equal footing and equal experience. So when we come to closed captions, in terms of V6, we're going to support 2 ways of doing it. One is using automatic speech recognition technology, and the other is using captioning vendors that do captions by stenographers, i.e. people that are professionally trained to do captions, and there's a vast price difference between the two. So this is basically three, they're not really three vendors, because YouTube I wouldn't term as a vendor of captions, but they're three providers of closed captions for videos, and three that we assessed in terms of accuracy. So YouTube, we were never going to go with YouTube as a technology within our software, but it's almost used as a kind of benchmark, really. Probably a bad benchmark, but it is used as a benchmark because people kind of don't really rate YouTube's captions. They're free, but do they work that well? So the findings were really that YouTube people have probably used, and I think in one of our user groups, somebody went into minute detail of how you get captions in YouTube, and then you re-upload them to MEDIAL, and we wrote a little article on how to do that. But not really a serious way of doing it, in that, you know, it's free, but you know, it has the downsides. I mean, you can see here 64% accuracy. So what we did in assessing these is we have a lot of video content that has a lot of different regional accents, like testimonials or presentations that people have done, or customers that we've got in China or America or wherever. And we fed all of the video content that we've got and a load of other video content into these systems to see how accurate they would come out. Microsoft's Azure service has something called Azure Media Indexer, which is their kind of cloud-based technology for doing automatic speech recognition. And there's another technology called VoiceBase, which is, you know, an ASR company in America that does voice recognition. So these were the kind of the findings. I mean, this isn't it's not an absolute, they are this accurate. This is kind of just what we found realistically. So take this with a grain of salt. And if any, you know, Azure or VoiceBase are watching, I'm not saying that they are 86% accurate. I'm just saying that is on our content. But the interesting things that we found through doing this was, if you have background noise or music on a video, you pretty much forget doing automatic speech recognition, because it's not going to do it. Music confuses it a lot, and a lot of background noise, the accuracy goes down a great deal. So content like I'm doing today, where basically it's just my voice and none of you guys are talking, is great for automatic speech recognition. Ditto, long form lectures, that sort of stuff. If it's going to be a video that you might put like high production value on, and you want the captions, you probably want to get the captions before you start adding all your lovely you know, music or whatever to it, because it's going to get confused by that, and particularly the background music as well. There are a lot of regional variances. So for example, the Azure technology we found doesn't deal particularly well with UK English, whereas the voice-based one does, because Azure sort of lumps it all together almost as English, whereas the other ones kind of, voice-based in particular, allows you to kind of select UK English or English, Australian English, and it is a bit more nuanced in the way that it deals with those things. So it deals with those things a lot better. YouTube splits words as well. We saw that a lot, where you get one word and it just splits it in two, and that's a bit of a pain when you go to edit it. So the takeaway from this slide is effectively that automatic speech recognition is not perfect, it's far from perfect, but kind of as good as you're going to get is something like the voice-based technology. So voice-based is effectively for automatic speech recognition is the one that we are going to use in version 6 of the product. The reasons why are because it supports multiple languages for a start, it supports multiple English variants, and it's a kind of proven and ultra-rapid technology. It's a very kind of bland way of saying it, but what it's born out of is analyzing call data. That's where the technology comes from. So when people call up call centers, it was developed as a way of kind of recognizing keywords that would bring up, oh, well, you know, this person's complaining about this particular thing. This needs to be escalated to X, Y, or Z manager. So it needs to be good because of that. And we found through all the testing that we did, this one came out top. And actually, when we spoke to a lot of the vendors for the stenographer captions, they offered us automatic speech recognition technology and said, well, why don't you use our lovely ASR technology as well as using us for this? And when I dug down into it, almost all of them were using this voice-based technology to do their ASR. So they were effectively kind of reselling this service as part of their overall package. They hadn't developed their own ASR technology, they were just using this. So this is the one that we settled on to use in the product. Again, a reason for using this is the cost, really. I mean, at scale, this can be done kind of, you know, $1, $2 per hour, something in that ballpark. It's not a huge amount of money to spend on that sort of thing. Then we come down to the stenographer-based captions. The company that we're going to do in the first pass of this is a company called Cielo24. Again, really good at high volumes. They have a kind of technology where they get good accuracy because it isn't necessarily one person viewing an entire hour of video and having to do the captions for it and getting completely bored and falling to sleep. They kind of do this sort of crowd captioning where they might give, you know, 5 minutes of a particular video to one person to do, and then another 5 minutes of that video to somebody else. So they overall get a very good accuracy because of that, but because they're kind of splitting up those captions amongst multiple people. And they've got multiple options for turnaround times as well. So you can choose 24 hours, 48 hours, whatever you want to choose. So a demo of that.
So the first thing that I'm going to do is upload a video. So as people will know, you can already upload videos and apply captions to those videos within MEDIAL today. But what I'm going to do is something slightly different today. I'm going to upload a video and then I'm going to request some captions because this is part of the new feature for version 6 of MEDIAL. So we type in our metadata as we normally would. We're just going to call this captions test file. We're going to put it in my personal category. And we're just going to put in some text here, maybe a tag. Select the thumbnails as usual. And here, this is the difference for V6. So at the moment, you can purely do this upload a captions file, and we support SRT, VTT, DFXP formats of captions. VTT being the most preferable of the three, as the device support is the best. But now in V6 you can also request captions to be made, and that can come in the form of requesting a transcription profile. So the two vendors that I mentioned earlier were Cielo24 and VoiceBase. So Cielo24 will produce the captions more often than not professionally by a person, and VoiceBase will be automatic speech recognition. The profile that you select is based on the permission that you have within the system, and profiles can be applied to groups or individuals within MEDIAL. So once we've selected the VoiceBase profile, we then just click next and we upload our video as usual. So let's go into an existing media record and request some captions. So if we go in here and we go to the associated files area and request some captions, and let's request them this time as the Cielo24 profile and confirm that. So those are now waiting for approval because that particular profile requires approval. If we now go into the captions area, we'll see that this one here is awaiting approval. Now, we could just reject this and give a reason for rejection, but what we could do as well is we could actually change the profile from being the Cielo24 profile to being voice-based. This could be for reasons of cost, let's say. So we could just say this was the cheaper way of doing it, and confirm. And then actually that media would have been approved for transcription, but just on a different profile. And if we look here, there was a transcription profile change here. So that message would go to the end user that requested that as well. Now let's say we go back into a file where captions have been requested. So the example might be here. We have already requested captions here, and the transcription has been completed, in this case using automatic speech recognition. But let's say we're not happy with the accuracy of the captions and we want to edit those. If we just click on this little pen icon here. So now that we're into the captions editor, we can see that we've got our video here. And as we play the video, it will step through the time sequences that the captions happened at, or the person spoke those words at. And as it steps through, what we can also do, if we want to, is we can go into this editor here, stop this from going, and then we can change the words that are in here. So for example, this stage here, this was actually a presentation that I did, and I know that I didn't say I'll run through V5. I know that I said V5 instead of V5. So if I edit that out of there and go in and say V5 instead of V5, and then go through the demo of live streaming, I certainly said that. And then what we do is we say that we're done. And as we go through here now, you can see that that change has happened. And this comes out in a list here so that we can change it as we go. Now we can actually go to that clip in MEDIAL and check out what that looks like. And here we are in MEDIAL. This is the file that I uploaded to do the captions, and we can see the captions have overlaid here, and the change that I've made, putting in V5 instead of the or the 5. Is
V5, there. And then I'll go through the demo of the live.
So it runs through here, and we can see any edits that we make then become available here through the captions.
Where are we? Analytics. Let's show you that as well. So this is the kind of the interface here for version 6 of the analytics.
So we get to analytics via the statistics menu, the existing statistics tile that's in MEDIAL. If we go in there, you can see that there's a whole bunch of new things here that we can define. We can kind of see an overview of the statistics of the entire library, and we can sort that by any different range of periods. So if we go here and we define the last year or the last 3 years, for example. And what we can see is as we change that range, different stuff becomes reported as the kind of top content, and it changes these graphs here. So this graph here shows the actual amount of plays and completes. Plays just being the amount of time that a clip has been played. Completes is actually what we term as a clip being played in its completion, and we kind of set a tolerance for that in terms of the percentage. We can also see the average kind of daily uniques, the amount of unique people that watch that clip, and then the total time watched as well. So you can get some really interesting and very detailed statistics by kind of overlaying these items here on the graph, and also we can take those away as well if we just want to see that over time. And again, we can sort by whatever period we want there as well. Another thing that's interesting here is the devices that are playing this thing back as well, the kind of the media that you've got across categories, number of logins that you have, how the encoder's doing in terms of successful transcodes. A lot of this information that's down the bottom here is information that's been reported by MEDIAL before. A lot of the stuff up the top here in terms of kind of the unique information about the library is new to this analytics, and the fact that you can sort by this time period. So you can do that as an overall overview of the library, but you can also go into a media item as well, and that's kind of the more interesting part of the analytics, I would say. So if we go in here to this particular item, this is kind of a user group video that we've got, and we sort by the statistics for, let's sort by the last 3 years. Probably the most interesting thing that you can see here is the kind of the engagement with the video, and this is something that a lot of our customers are very, very interested in terms of kind of learning outcomes and things like that. So as we play through this video, we can see, kind of user drop off as we go through here. And this allows you as the producer of the video to kind of see the moment in your video that, things started to become a lot less compelling. So for example, in this video at kind of 1 minute, 1 minute 40 or something like that, I'm starting to get a big dropout. Not exactly sure what I said at that point, but you can see it kind of goes down there. And again, for each individual clip, we can do the same thing as what we could do before for the entire library, and we can see that information across time. On an individual item basis, I would say probably the most interesting thing is actually engagement by person. So let's say you're a teacher and you go in here and you actually want to see the amount of engagement each user that watched that clip, or each learner, in the case of an LMS system, had with that particular piece of content. And the engagement is kind of a function of the amount of times the clip was played, the amount of time it was played for, and we basically make an engagement score from the metrics that we have on how many times they played it, how long they watched it for. So that's really, really interesting information. So that's on a kind of overall basis, but also all down to the kind of per media item basis. So this would allow your teacher, your instructor to go in and look at all of their content, because this can be seen by the admin as well as a general end user, and see which things resonated with users, and also see it down to the point of which bits of the clip were interesting and where they potentially lost their audience in terms of doing that as well.
Then in terms of live, there's this idea of simulcasting that Ryan spoke about. So to begin with, we are going to support simulcasting in V6. So for example, if you had this kind of MEDIAL player, you'd have this kind of social icon so that you could go off to see it on Facebook Live at the same time. The reason for simulcasting is really from the point of view of getting out to those multiple endpoints, but at the same time trying to stream at scale from the cloud. So as we said earlier, what we don't want to do is come to a point where you're doing a live event and you say, well, look, 600 users is not enough. We want to be able to go out to the cloud. So my example that I showed earlier, where I did the pre-roll and the post-roll and the live stream, will basically be doing that live stream through Wowzer's cloud service. So you can be sure that it could be 1,000 streams or 10,000 streams or however many streams you want to do, because it would be doing it from the cloud service. You could also push to multiple endpoints as well. Just as a point of interest on this now, recent kind of reading on this suggests that you can't, due to Facebook's terms and conditions, what I've read anyway, you're not able to push to YouTube and Facebook simultaneously anymore. So you'd probably have to push. You're technically able to do it, but from a point of view of the T's and C's, apparently it's a no-no now. So it can certainly. Yeah.
Officially, you're not supposed to.
Yeah.
Only high-profile events
Okay.
are actually being
Looked at. Yeah, monitored.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I don't think. Well, I can't speak on their behalf.
Allegedly.
So currently, yes, you're not allowed to. But
yeah.
I've seen plenty of Wowzer customers and MEDIAL customers and others that are.
So
technically, you can.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
But
we've
not
done
legally.
It. Yeah, we've done it.
That's
up
to you.
Yeah. But yeah, like I say, that's just as a point of interest, really. That's the kind of the route that the Facebook thing is basically saying through your own website or through Facebook, not through Facebook and YouTube and your own website. I mean, you're totally fine to do it through your own website and Facebook at the time of writing anyway. A demo of that, just to kind of show how that's looking. let's not go in there. Let's go into Rob's one. Destination, here we go. So this is the kind of interface where you're saying, okay, what endpoints do I want to push out to? I mean, this one exists already, the medial output, but then you want to kind of define, okay, I'd like to push it to Facebook. You put in your stream target IDs. You know, this is all stuff that you're going to get back from Facebook anyway. You go with YouTube. You want to push to that. Obviously, whether we'll allow both of those at the same time is a point of some debate. And then you push to the Wowzer streaming cloud as well. The takeaway from this is what this will allow you to do is for the events that you need to, you could stream at scale. So for example, today, what we're doing is our live stream is going from Wowzer streaming cloud. That is our live stream thing, but you'll still be able to use the switcher in the same way that you do. It's just that the live stream part of it will go from Wowzer streaming cloud. We'll still support you going from the Wowzer streaming engine as well, but you'll be able to do both now, and also point a stream at Facebook and a stream at YouTube if you want to. So you're going to have lots of different options, and it's going to allow you to stream at scale as well, which is important if you're not sure on the audience, because we know that there are constraints with single Wowzer instances for these things. And if people have got the luxury of having lots of Wowzer servers, that's great, but if they haven't, you need that kind of scale as well. That wasn't that relevant. On the learning side, a few things here. So for the people that have got Canvas, I know I've been to loads of customers that have got Canvas, and they've kind of said that currently in Canvas, when you add a medial resource, it basically adds this kind of play media link to the text editor, which doesn't look very good. We're going to get it so that it adds the proper media player. It's just an advancement in the way LTI works. It's something called content item message. It means that we can do that now. So we're going to do that. That should come along pretty soon, actually. That might even be in a dot release of 5. We support Moodle 3.4, which is just out. We actually support that pretty much now, actually, but that will be included as V6. We're going to support the Moodle mobile app, if people have seen that. So there's a specific app for Moodle now on iOS and Android, so we'll support playback of media through that. There's no way that we could support upload of media through that, but we'll definitely support the playback of media through that, and we've got that working already, actually. The webcam capture, this is a real bane, really. It's one of those ones that people ask about all the time. Ours uses Flash. It's an outdated technology. We're going to swap that out for HTML5. So the webcam capture will be through HTML5, not through Flash. The browser support for that, I mean, at the time of writing, that would only be in Chrome and Firefox, but we'll detect the user agent and kind of give people a message to say, you know, this works in these particular browsers. But it will mean that you can completely dump Flash, which would be a preference, obviously, for most people, because the webcam capture only works with Flash currently. Media lecture. The annotations that the drawing tools that we currently have are these. We're going to add text to that. Haven't kind of mocked it up, but that's going to be added on there, so you can do text annotations over the top of your presentations. You're going to be able to add custom titles, title and credit slides. At the moment, I don't know whether you've had a look at the title and credit slides that are in Media Lecture, but they're not the most aesthetically pleasing in the world, so you'll be able to add your own custom ones, which is a good enhancement. You'll be able to record system audio. So at the moment in Media Lecture, you can effectively record your mic or a audio source, but say if you played a video, it wouldn't necessarily record the system audio. So that's going to be in Media Lecture as well. And then also live streaming through Media Lecture. That's in the kind of early stages of being developed. But if you're interested to kind of look at how we're going to do that, contact me, because it is quite early days with that. And actually, we're kind of up for suggestions on it as well. If you've got suggestions, I'm looking at Tony, and you see how, because it's definitely something I think would be of use. It's sort of going to be, a lot of people that I find use Open Broadcaster, which is a very popular encoder. It's going to kind of come into that sort of space, but as a kind of licensed tool that people can use across the board. And that's it. I apologize that I didn't get to show you the analytics in quite the way that I'd wanted to, but I'll splice in a nice recording of that for the VOD version so that you guys have got it. And I'm very conscious of time with somebody scuttling around clearing up cups of tea, putting them off my flow, but anyway. So, yeah, thanks everyone online, everyone at home.